Today we're talking with Jonathan Jacobs, the founder and executive director of Rawkstars, a creative youth music development organization out of Massachusetts.
Welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast with Jen Klein, a certified fundraising executive and philanthropic entrepreneur. This show is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you to make a difference in your community and our world. Jen believes all acts of kindness matter, and this show is designed to help you take pride in your everyday actions of improving the lives of others and making a change in the world. Now, here's Jen.
JJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's great to see you, Jen.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad we connected. I love what you're doing. Can you just give my listeners an introduction to what you do?
Sure. So, as you described, Rockstars sees itself as a creative youth development organization, and we use music programming as the vehicle for teaching kids life skills. There's a lot to be learned from participating in music beyond just, learning to play guitar or be a singer or a piano player. Anybody who's participated in music or the arts has no doubt experienced lots of changes in their life as a result. You know, discipline, it's really hard to play an instrument. You got to stick with it. Teamwork, you've got to learn to be a good communicator. You've got to be a great listener. Self-confidence, self-expression, resilience, all these things that, we hope that our kids will learn are all things that can be gleaned by participating in music.
Excellent. Yes, as a childhood piano player, I know very well how enjoyable. I still have a piano in my home and teach my
Oh, cool.
children when I can. Yeah. So I know it's such an important component to soothing your soul too. Can you tell us about the Beats, Bars, and Beyond program you have too?
Sure, yeah. So, Rockstars has been around since 2003. So November is actually our 21st anniversary, which is a big milestone. I don't think if I was very sure if that would have happened if you had asked me 21 years ago. Um, but we have two signature programs. One is called Rock and Roll, and we spell that ENROLL. And that program finds kids who want to get involved with playing music but can't afford it. We give the child, he or she, an instrument of their choice. We don't care if you want to learn guitar, piano, saxophone. We don't have a specific curriculum. We want you to be in charge and have agency over selecting what you do. So we just try to support that in whatever way we can. So we give you an instrument. We find you a local instructor in your area so that you don't have transportation as an obstacle, because many of our students come from a single parent household, and we didn't want to limit ourselves to one specific location so children would have to travel to us. We work in a distributed fashion so we can service kids in any town within Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So once you get the instrument, we find you a qualified teacher from our diverse network in your local area, and you take music lessons there, and Rockstars foots the bill every month. That program is 100% free of charge to all kids and all parents and has been since day one. One thing we've learned over the years is a lot of services that are available to families in need also come along with a lot of baggage, lots of red tape, lots of documentation, and we want to make it, very lightweight and very easy for moms and kids to enroll in our programming. So that's been our core program since 2003. About 5 years ago, just before COVID, we started a new program, which you referred to, that we call Beats, Bars, and Beyond. And what we do with that program is we go into juvenile prisons within Massachusetts and Rhode Island in conjunction with the state agencies that run those facilities, of course. And we teach music to kids there. Now, obviously, they have very different obstacles and needs than quote unquote, regular kids outside of that environment. So we try to bring the same principles and allow the kids to decide what they want to learn. And, one thing you see when you go into these facilities is that the youth have very, very little agency over what they do. They can't make basic daily choices about what clothes to wear, what they want to eat for lunch, what time they want to wake up. Um, the surfaces are all very sterile and hard and cold. There's no color, there's no soft, there's no warm. And so we bring culturally relevant music programming and teachers in to instruct the kids on beat making, song structure, recording, hip hop creation, and then we supplement that with classes in career development where we have outside speakers come in and try to get the kids motivated and educated about how they can turn what they're learning in the music classes into something that can change their life once they're released.
Wow. That is just such a wonderful program. You run both of them. Um, Tell me how you got started.
How did I get started? Sure. Well, I think the ethos of the Rockstars programming, it really came to life because it's a mirror of my own story. Um, I grew up with a difficult family situation, a single parent, not a lot of economic advantage. And music was really something that just brought me a lot of relief and comfort. And, I was obsessed with music and was always listening to music. And as I got a little older, I tried to play music and, I didn't have God-given talent like a lot of the kids that we see. And at that time, I wasn't really a hard worker, but through participating in music and having a lot of friends in music and trying my hand at a couple of bands, I got introduced to the idea of a recording studio. And that really changed my life. So, Rockstars became about not so much teaching kids to become virtuoso players, but just really exposing them to a community of like-minded people, to giving them a choice in what they want to do. Cause a lot of kids they're not listened to and they don't have a lot of agency in their day-to-day life, particularly, the incarcerated kids that I mentioned. But, Rockstars really is about exposing kids to what's possible and transforming their lives through music, even if they don't become a professional musician, which I myself never did either.
Thank you for sharing that story. I love hearing how you turned a challenge into something so meaningful and helpful to others.
Thanks.
And I'm so curious, how did you get your first client? What were the early years like 21 years ago when you started this great nonprofit?
Yeah. To be honest, we looking back on it, we didn't have a grand plan. I had kind of gotten a bug and introduced to the idea of philanthropy and fundraising and charity through some events that I had participated in. And I just noticed how strongly that connective tissue of doing something for the betterment of other people, especially people you didn't even know and had never met. There was something about that that was just really magical. And it wasn't just for me, it was for myself and all the other people that I kind of saw and participated in those kinds of events with. So I knew that I wanted to try to figure out a way to capture that and turn it into a way for me to give back so that other kids could potentially have a similar experience to the one that I had. And, I think a lot of times when people are thinking about starting a nonprofit or volunteering or trying to figure out the most impactful way to give back, there's a lot of people get hung up on thinking about the perfect way to do it or, what's the most important thing that people need. And I revert back to the old Nike slogan of just do it. I think if you try to think about it too much, you're going to wind up deprioritizing the most important part of it, which is finding something that lights you up personally and that makes you excited, right? Because if you're excited and you're motivated, that can't help but come out in the work and that can't help but come out and rub off on those around you. So I think a lot of times with people, especially as they get older and they think about wanting to maybe pivot in their career towards something more fulfilling, I think a lot of people start from the point of view of what can I do that's going to replace my income and what's going to be safe and secure as far as as job opportunity. And I'm not discounting those things, but if you really want to come at it from the perspective of purpose and fulfillment, I think you really need to lean into what has meaning to you. And I think the rest of it, I don't want to oversimplify and say it will take care of itself. But if you don't have that motivation for something that really sparks you inside, it's going to be hard to sustain and it's going to feel more like you're just doing a job anyways. So, I think it's important to just get going and do the thing that you feel in your heart is motivating to you. And I think that that rubs off and that shines through for others.
I love that advice. I take that advice because I love sharing this podcast and I love sharing stories like you of people who are making a difference in the world. And
Mm.
it's not something I've seen many other people do. And so I wish there were more opportunity where we shared about philanthropists such as yourself, of good work people are doing. And I do hope the listeners today look you up and look in the show notes and figure out how to help you and giving their time, talent, and treasure, because the things that you're doing are really important, exciting, life giving. It's just, I would love that you had enough grit, like you said, to sustain 21 years of founding a nonprofit as the executive director and leading it. That is just commendable.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I think a big takeaway for me, when I was younger, I was looking for more instant gratification, right? I wanted to see that our program was growing, that we were, how are we going to scale this up and help more kids? And you really, you want to see results, right? That's kind of human nature. But as I've gotten older, I think I get more satisfaction out of this idea of helping to plant trees that I'll never be able to sit under myself. I think it's, the idea that I may never see the fruits of labor. I may never see what happens to one of, our students 5 years from now or even next week. I think that there's something magical about that and letting go of the idea of needing to see that constant stream of, quote unquote results. And I think it's become more about just putting myself out there and putting our programming out there in an authentic way and letting people get out of it what they can get out of it. And for some people, that may be fleeting and it may be a small amount. For other people, it really is and has been life changing. And I've been lucky enough to get firsthand and see firsthand many of our students grow up and get that kind of direct feedback from them and from their parents. But there's many that I haven't, and that I've lost touch with, or we, like I said, our model is distributed, so not all the kids are in my community. And so oftentimes there'll be somebody you might help them. They might be in the program for 6 months or a year, and then that's it. You never hear from them again. And I've made not only made peace with that, but I've come to learn that that actually is a great thing because I think it keeps us grounded in the purity and love of what we're doing and less focused on, data or other things, which I'm not saying those things are not important. And we use data in lots of ways. And of course, we want to keep track and make sure we're impacting people, but we know we're doing that. And I think sometimes it's helpful if you can let go of those outcomes and do something out of the purity and love of wanting to do it.
I love that. I love what an optimist and positive force you are. I love that you lead with heart. And I can see why you have changed the definition of success for all of us to be reminded that my one of my favorite quotes is Mother Teresa said, "If you can't feed 100 people, then feed just one." And
Mhm.
so, you know that that's something I tell myself, with my podcast and my book that I've shared with the world, is that each book that's sold, each podcast that's shared, it causes a ripple effect, like you said, and lives are changed and people are moved to make a difference in their world, and it causes a ripple effect. And like you said, we won't be able to always see that change, but we can know it's there, and that shouldn't be our focus anyway. It should just be the joy of giving.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that that's a great philosophy. And I hadn't been familiar with that quote by Mother Teresa, but that hits home a lot. Another thing I see with, folks that are interested in trying to get into the nonprofit world or, start their own charity is it can get overwhelming, right? Like the quote you described, if you can't feed 100 people, people get caught up in feeling like they need to solve these global problems in a very scaled and grandiose way. But really, you can change the world at any time. Holding the door for somebody at the store and just slowing down and sitting there and waiting 2 or 3 seconds, you'll always see somebody will, oh, they scoot up to try to get there quicker. And they say, well, thank you very much. Because even though you only just gave 2 seconds standing there, they felt that. They felt that you did something for them and you're a complete stranger. And, things like that really do change the world. One of the quotes that I like to lean into is, "We don't see things the way they are. We see things the way that we are." And I think it's very easy to form opinions about, the negativity and the problems in the world, but really it's a choice on how you look at every single thing in your life. And you can look at it through a lens of love, positivity, and hope. And, none of those things are right or wrong, but which way would you rather go through the world? And which way do you think is going to have more of an impact on improving the world?
So if no one listens to this podcast, at least this is good reminders for myself.
It's good. Just me and you is more than enough.
Yeah, I am happy to share. I reached a personal milestone of 2,000 listeners on my podcast,
Oh,
and I've been inching closer and closer, and I got over that mark, and that brings me great satisfaction in knowing that there's 2,000 people out there who have enjoyed these conversations.
that's a
And,
lot of people.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
I I'm so glad that the sharing messages like yours of hope, inspiration, and that it really does bless others. I've heard even just the reviews people have left on my podcast as well as my book writing. People like hearing these stories of courage and change and making a difference. And I think people understand that we can't go out there and be the next Bill and Melinda Gates of the world, but that we can start where we are. And you and I were talking prior to this podcast about our even our families and how the home life is to people, and being I'm sure your children are inspired by you.
I like to think so. Sometimes as their parent, you wind up being the butt of the jokes more than a source of, inspiration, at least externally. But yeah, I think you're spot on. And, kids are a great reminder and visual example of the power of doing something over time, right? And I think of philanthropy and the nonprofit work that we do. I really look at it through the lens of investing, just like, investing financially or investing by going to the gym every day. I think you can build these things almost as a muscle. And just like investing, as long as you do it consistently and you do it long enough, it's going to work, right? Working out is a perfect example. It's not that complicated, even though I struggle to do it, and lots of people do. It's one of those magical things that if you just do it and you do it consistently, it's going to work. And I think, learning and teaching my children, to bring it back to where we started, that they can change the world in these small ways. And that if they just behave that way over time, that they'll have a tremendous impact on not only others, but on themselves and on their own kids someday. So I think, thinking of it in those little incremental ways that you describe, you don't have to, solve the problems of the world in one day. I think it's better to take the slow and steady wins the race, as they say.
Hey, would you share with us one of a memory that you have of your 21 years of being the founder and executive director of Rawkstars about like something that touched you deeply and brought you a lot of joy in your work?
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of personal stories with, the several hundred children that we've had go through the program in the, almost 21 years that we've been doing it. And certainly there's been a lot of success stories there, both with kids who have actually become adept and able to make music like their livelihood, but also many who have just had smaller wins where music helped them just have a safe space and some stability and consistency in their life and some mentorship from their music teacher once a week. So it kind of runs the gambit in terms of the stories. I think the one thing, if I had to point to one thing that struck me the most, is that the community that we've been able to develop through Rockstars is just so strong and so powerful. We really try to do a good job of having our donors, our students, our parents, our teachers all in it together. We want you to see firsthand what your support is going to. We want you to feel those stories. We want you to know the name of that 8-year-old kid that your donation is going to help. We want you to see him or her 3 or 4 years later when you come to our event and their mom shows up and the kid has grown like a foot and, they start talking about how much music has meant to them. And just it really has shined a light on, for me, it's really shined a light on the fact that I think most people really want to be involved with something that helps others, and they really want to feel connected now more than ever. And I think they just, some people needed to have rock stars as a way, as a gateway for them to do that, to make it easy for them so that they can see that they don't have to start their own, charity. They can be part of ours. And that is good for them. That's good for rock stars, and that's good for all the people we serve. And so I really, I always look at the communal aspect of what we do as really our superpower. Um, I think Rockstars is just the right size where I know every single kid that we've had through the program, and I like it that way. And I think other people like it that way too. And I think that's what makes us attractive because people are not just donating to a cause. They're not just swiping their credit card. They're not just, attending an event. They're really joining a family and they feel that at every step of the way. So I think the community aspect is what I would really point to as the most meaningful and probably something I didn't really consider that much at the beginning. I didn't have the foresight to understand that could happen.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And it's good that you create a safe space for many people and even a warm environment for, like you said, donors who maybe sometimes feel unappreciated. And when you have that close knit community, like you said, everybody can see the benefits and rewards of working together.
Yeah.
And um, yeah,
Yeah. People that support rock stars, they're not going to get a backpack or a coffee mug or, something like that. They're going to feel what it's like. They're going to feel its power. They're going to feel connected to it because they are connected to it. And they are the driving force behind everything we've done and everything we will be able to do. We wouldn't be able to do it without every single one of those people.
that's beautiful. Yeah. It's and as you know, so important to get involved at all levels. $25 to, volunteer work, that those are things that are my jam is not all of us can be giving millions of dollars, but we can make a difference with our time
Yep.
and with what we have, what we can do.
Yeah, that's great. I sometimes use this goofy analogy of rock stars as kind of a symphony. You know, it's lots of different people. I'm not really that talented. I'm not out there playing the music. I'm just kind of coordinating and giving people a guide about what's going on. But, even in a symphony, somebody with the tiniest part, a little drum part on the timpani at the end, that could be the most memorable and impactful part of the entire piece. So it's not about who's playing the most or who's playing the loudest it's about all those things working together to make something greater than any one of us could do on our own.
It's interesting when something happens in my life where it's just like that cannot be a coincidence. I like to say it's like divinely orchestrated because sometimes things just fit together so beautifully. They gel so well together. It's like there's got to be something out there that is more than just luck.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And now, more than ever, people are looking for that unseen connection and that magnetism that, you know, we feel less and less nowadays that we're interacting more with a device or we're disconnected by, working at home or always being on the run and trying to achieve as opposed to just enjoying the little things that you're doing as part of your life. Um, so yeah, I think that people are really looking and sorely lacking in that area. And, charity and volunteering is a great way for you to sort of regain that for yourself, no matter what you're interested in, how much time you have. You can always find a cause in your local area that could benefit from, you being part of it in whatever small way that you're able to do. And I guarantee if you do that and you take that first leap, you're going to get more out of it than whatever you give to it. That I can almost guarantee you.
It's so interesting how that works.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I
Yeah.
like to say we're hardwired to give and it boomerangs back to us. Those are my kind of slogans.
Yeah. I like that. I'll have to write that one down after we're done.
JJ, it's been so great having you here. I loved hearing your story of hope and inspiration, and I hope my listeners share this story. Can you tell us how to find you in on your website?
Sure. So you can find us, our website is rawkstars.org, and we spell it a little bit with a New England colloquialism. So it's spelled RAWKSTARS .org. You'll be able to find us there. I'm not much of a social media person, but we do have a presence on Instagram and Facebook. And if you take a minute or two, I'm sure you'll be able to find us there. And drop a note. I love to get notes from people, questions, or just to say hi. If you need advice, if there's anything we can do to help you, if you have a student who's interested in music or you're confused and need help moving forward, please reach out. That's exactly what we're here for.
Thank you so much, JJ. It's been a real pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Jen. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.